The simultaneous resignations of BBC Director General Tim Davie and CEO of News Deborah Turness mark a severe crisis point for the world's oldest national public broadcaster. The immediate trigger was the fallout from a Panorama documentary that allegedly misled viewers by selectively editing a portion of a speech given by President Donald Trump on January 6, 2021. This singular editorial failing, which critics argued distorted the context of Trump's remarks to suggest explicit incitement, rapidly escalated into a full-blown institutional crisis. The deeper analysis reveals that the resignations are not merely about one documentary, but are the culmination of mounting systemic pressures. A leaked internal memo, reportedly detailing editorial failures on politically sensitive subjects, including coverage of the Israel-Gaza conflict and transgender issues, turned a single mistake into an accusation of serious and systemic bias. Davie's acknowledgement that some mistakes were made and his acceptance of ultimate responsibility underscore the gravity of the situation. The BBC is facing a profound challenge to its foundational commitment to impartiality, an obligation that is legally mandated through its royal charter. Reasons for the crisis. The crisis stems from both immediate tactical failures and underlying cultural challenges. Immediate editorial misconduct. The direct cause was the breach of fundamental editorial standards in the Panorama episode, where clips from a speech separated by nearly an hour were spliced together without clear context. This action fundamentally violated the principle of accuracy and impartiality by actively constructing a misleading narrative, providing undeniable ammunition to the broadcaster's political critics. Systemic bias allegations. More damaging than the single edit were the revelations in the leaked internal memo. This document suggested that editorial lapses were not isolated incidents, but were indicative of systemic problems across various departments. Allegations of anti-Israel bias in BBC Arabic's Gaza coverage and the reported suppression of challenging stories on transgender issues suggest a broader organizational inability to maintain neutrality when covering polarized topics, confirming the perception of institutional bias held by many lawmakers and critics. Leadership accountability. The ultimate reason for the joint resignations lies in the doctrine of leadership accountability. Davie and Turness recognized that the controversy had reached a point where it directly damaged the BBC's reputation, forcing them to take responsibility. While Turness explicitly denied institutional bias, the sheer volume of high-profile editorial missteps and the failure to contain or credibly address internal warnings made their positions untenable amid intense public and political scrutiny. Consequences and fallout. The consequences of this dual resignation are immediate and far-reaching, impacting the BBC's internal stability, external reputation, and future legal status. Internal instability and vacuum. The sudden departure of the Director General and the news chief creates an immediate leadership vacuum and significant internal instability. This occurs at a time when the corporation needs a clear, steady hand to navigate the ongoing political backlash and undertake the promised editorial review. Erosion of trust and reputation. For a public broadcaster funded by a mandatory license fee, public trust is its only currency. The editing scandal and the subsequent bias allegations severely damaged the perception of the BBC as a reliable, impartial global news source. This erosion is particularly acute among polarized political audiences who already view the institution with skepticism. Heightened political scrutiny. The timing is disastrously critical, as the BBC is approaching crucial discussions with the UK government regarding the renewal of its royal charter and the future of the licence fee model in 2027. Lawmakers, including the Culture Secretary, have demanded a full response, signalling a likely period of intense political oversight that could potentially lead to stricter regulatory conditions or even fundamental changes to the BBC's funding structure. The crisis makes the argument for maintaining the current licence fee model significantly harder to defend. Prediction and future trajectory. The BBC's immediate future will be dominated by a necessity for visible penance and structural reform. Short to medium term, the organisation will prioritise a swift public apology for the editorial failure. It will immediately launch a comprehensive internal review of its editorial processes particularly around the use of archive and documentary footage to demonstrate decisive action. The BBC board will focus on appointing a successor who possesses impeccable credentials for impartiality and is politically acceptable across the spectrum. There will likely be an interim leader for several months while the search for a new, permanent Director General takes place. Long term, the scandal will likely force the BBC to adopt more rigorous, public-facing editorial governance. This could include the creation of an independent mechanism for reviewing complaints regarding bias in politically sensitive programming. If the BBC fails to convincingly restore trust, the long-term prediction is that the political pressure will materialize into tangible policy changes, potentially resulting in the license fee being frozen or significantly altered, fundamentally changing the scale and scope of the BBC's operations. Solutions for restoration. To genuinely restore its reputation and political standing, the BBC must implement solutions focused on radical transparency, accountability, and structural change. Radical transparency in editorial judgments. The BBC must publish the full, unredacted findings of its editorial review, detailing where internal checks failed. Furthermore, it should consider creating a public ledger or dashboard that tracks high-profile impartiality complaints, showing the full details of the allegations and the internal corrective action taken, not just the outcome. Enhanced accountability. Editorial accountability needs to move beyond simple resignation. Specific roles or production teams must have clearer, non-negotiable lines of responsibility for upholding accuracy. Implement a system where politically sensitive documentaries are subject to mandatory red team reviews by an independent panel of internal and external subject matter experts from diverse political backgrounds before broadcast. Mandatory refresher training on impartiality. Institutional bias often stems from unconscious blind spots. The corporation should institute mandatory, regular, and scenario-based training for all news and current affairs staff, focusing specifically on navigating coverage of polarized topics like political extremism, international conflicts, and identity issues, ensuring all perspectives, even those that challenge the corporate culture, are fairly represented. Charter defense strategy. Proactively use the internal review and subsequent reforms as the basis for a renewed argument for the Royal Charter. The BBC must articulate a vision where its unique, publicly funded role is essential for upholding democratic debate, precisely because it has the mandate and the mechanisms to correct its own errors and strive for world-class impartiality.